Quick, what has been cited as the first made-for-TV animated Christmas special? If you said Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, you'd be right. And you would probably not be very surprised because that's the subject of this video, and it wouldn't make sense if the answer was anything else. Many wonderful Christmas specials were first broadcast in the 60s and 70s, with Rudolph, Frosty, Charlie Brown, and the Grinch becoming staples of the season. However, it was an adaptation of A Christmas Carol that led the way, starring an unlikely character. Mr. Magoo is a nearsighted little old man who refuses to wear a functioning pair of glasses, mostly out of stubbornness. His lack of vision repeatedly gets him into trouble, but he manages to walk away from the chaos unscathed, and oblivious to the destruction he has left in his wake. He first appeared in the 1949 cartoon Ragtime Bear, where he was portrayed as being grumpy and quick to anger. However, his temper was quickly toned down in the following shorts, and he became much more of a lovable old coot, helping him rise in popularity. By the beginning of the 60s, Magoo had been in 2 Academy Award-winning shorts, and was featured in the full-length 1001 Arabian Nights movie as Aladdin's uncle, Abdul Aziz Magoo. According to a story told by his wife on the animated special's audio commentary, producer Lee Orgel was struck with inspiration one day to make a version of A Christmas Carol with Mr. Magoo as Scrooge. This might have seemed strange to some, since Magoo didn't really seem like a Scrooge type in most of his cartoons, with any trouble he caused being unintentional. Even in the Aladdin movie, he acted as the comic relief, along with providing some accidental heroism. The problem is non-existent in the special, though, because Magoo is actually acting as Scrooge in a Broadway production. Although the musical is bookended by 2 sequences of Magoo causing mayhem before and after the play, within the show itself, he plays the role of Ebeneezer Scrooge nearly flawlessly. I say nearly because in the final scenes, he's allowed a few classic Magoo gags, my favorite being him shaking hands with a turkey and poking the vendor's stomach, commenting on how nice and fat the bird is. The way that the story is presented as a stage production is done very ingeniously. Although we get a few shots of the audience and the curtain rising, for the most part we are in the play's Dickensian world. When you're seeing a theatrical production, there's always some suspension of disbelief. You're able to see the strings on Peter Pan, but if you're caught up in the story enough, you can ignore that part. I don't know if anyone's ever directly stated this, but I assume that's how the ghosts are all transparent and how Christmas Future can form seemingly out of nowhere. The actual play might be using conventional effects, but we are seeing it from the invested audience's point of view, where all the magic is real. That ties into the most amazing part about Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. They play the story straight, pathos and all. There is a lot of potential for campiness, but the production takes itself seriously, and it's all the better for it. With this adaptation, the biggest strength lies in its voice acting, art design, and soundtrack. The voice actors are a talented bunch, led by Jim Backus as Mr. Magoo. Although there have been a few recurring characters in the Magoo cartoons over the years, none of them actually appeared in this adaptation, with almost everyone else being designed specifically as their literary counterparts. Only Tiny Tim's actor is someone from a pre-existing cartoon, and it's an odd choice for the kid. Tim is played by Gerald McBoing-Boing from a cartoon of the same name, where he is only able to speak in strange sound effects. As a result, it's a little weird to hear him speaking normally here. As I said, all the voice actors do good jobs in their roles, with highlights including Jack Cassidy as Bob Cratchit, Royal Dano as Jacob Marley, and Jane Keane as Belle. The great Paul Frees pulls quintuple duty here as a collector for the poor, Fezziwig, Old Joe, The Undertaker, and the hapless director. The art direction is wonderful. It's typical of the stuff that you would normally see in cartoons around this time, to the point that Disney even used this sort of style in a few of their cartoons. Although the character animation is somewhat limited by the budget, the poses and movements still convey the proper emotions, and it's generally pleasing to look at. The background design is even better. Everything has a very distinct look and color palette, with my favorite set pieces being the bright lights of Broadway, Scrooge's dismal house, and the gorgeously gloomy cemetery. One of the most memorable aspects to many about the special is the music. The songs had music by Jules Stein and lyrics by Bob Merrill. The 2 songwriters had wonderful careers, with their best-known collaboration being the Broadway musical Funny Girl. On their own, Merrill had written classic songs like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window and If I Knew You Were Coming I'd Have Baked a Cake. Stein wrote the music for Broadway musicals like Gypsy, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and contributed some of the best songs to the Mary Martin Peter Pan musical after the original score didn't have enough music to flesh out a full show. Together, they wrote some great songs for the cartoon, like Scrooge's catchy ode to greed, Ringle Ringle, and the heartbreaking All Alone in the World, sung by Scrooge as a child, and later by Scrooge in the Graveyard. Once the producers overheard the composers at a piano playing a song called People. The producers loved the song and were delighted it was going to be in their Christmas special, until Stein and Merrill said that no, they were actually practicing a song for Funny Girl, which they were also working on at the time. This has led to an urban legend that the song People was written for Magoo, but in actuality it was always meant for Barbra Streisand. However, the love ballad Winter Was Warm, sung by Belle before leaving Scrooge, actually began as a song called Where in the World for the musical Bells Are Ringing. When the song was unused in the show, Merrill wrote new lyrics to Stein's original melody for The Christmas Carol. One of the few times the special goes all out with slapstick comedy is in the Plunderer's March song, aka Where Despicable. In the scene where a group of rogues sell the wares they stole off of Scrooge's dead body to Old Joe, the ragman, they rather randomly burst out into a song about how nasty they are. This song is completely pointless, because it's already been established how scummy these characters are, and even then it doesn't really have anything to do with Scrooge, who the whole story is based around. Despite being superfluous, the song is delightful, and adds a nice bit of levity in the middle of an increasingly bleak story. The reason that the musical number was included at all, apparently, is because when they were putting the special together, they realized they had a minute or two to fill, hence the song being somewhat tacked on. The entire sequence was animated by one person, Gerald Baldwin, in the span of about 2 weeks. In the special's audio commentary, he confessed that the close-ups of the characters' nearly toothless mouths were made to make the animation process a little easier. The special's portrayal of the story, although generally conventional, does take a few liberties for one reason or another. The original version of the script had characters like Nephew Fred and Ignorance and Want, and it had the scene where we see Belle happily married to another man. Once the songs were written, these scenes were cut to make room for them. The most notable difference, however, is the order in which the three spirits appear. Christmas Present actually appears first, before Christmas Past. There has never been an official reason given to why they did this, but it's theorized it was based around the placement of the commercial breaks. Another theory is that it was to put more space between the Cratchit song, The Lord's Bright Blessing, and its reprise at the finale. Either way, I don't particularly care for this change. I feel that the road to Scrooge's redemption makes more sense by reminding him of his sad youth first, before showing him all the good that is out there. But that's the most glaring flaw in an otherwise very well done production, and it's one that can probably be forgiven by most people. Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol did well enough in the ratings that 2 years after it premiered, a follow-up TV series was produced called The Famous Adventures of Mr. Magoo. In this show, we saw Magoo's other performances as literary characters, like Victor Frankenstein and even Noah from the Bible. The strangest episode had Magoo go undercover as a gangster to help Dick Tracy. In the 70s, Lee Orgel pitched a direct sequel called The Return of Ebeneezer Scrooge, where Scrooge would have met Oliver Twist and helped the orphan. Nothing much came out of this, but apparently Stein and Merrill were willing to write more songs for it, so I can't help but wonder how it would have turned out. While it doesn't air annually, Magoo's Christmas Carol has been rerun every now and then around the holidays. Because commercials take up more time now, the airings are often shortened, usually by cutting a couple songs. The version I grew up with was taped from an airing in the mid-90s, and it was missing the opening and closing scenes where Magoo acts as his classic nearsighted self. It was also missing the Winter Was Warm song. I didn't know these scenes existed for a long time. I've heard that the Despicable song is often cut, which makes sense despite how fun the song is. One airing I saw somewhat recently cut anything related to the story being a stage production. All the times the shot panned out to reveal the audience were gone, meaning that 2 songs, including the ending song, were cut off, making the whole thing feel kinda weird and sloppy. Oh well. As a wonderful tribute to the Christmas special, the Actors Fund organization staged a one-night concert adaptation of the musical twice, once in 2014 and once in 2019. From the bit of footage released of the productions, they look delightful, and I hope if they do more in the future that I might be able to attend. Although Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol might not come immediately to people's minds if you mention animated Christmas specials, it's certainly paved the way for many to come, and it's a wonderful cartoon in its own right, with plenty of love and care put into the production. If you haven't watched this one yet, I definitely recommend it. Magoo, you've done it again. For this video, I need to give a shout out to DARREL Van Citters, who has provided so much valuable information about this version of A Christmas Carol over the years. He has written a book on the making of the special, runs a blog on the same subject, and leads the audio commentary on the Magoo DVD. A lot of images featured here come from the book and the blog, and are definitely worth seeking out for fans. I will be sure to add some links in the description.
Ringle, ringle,
It's
coins
cold,
when they mingle make
it's
such
cold,
a lovely
it's
sound.
frightfully cold.
Guineas and tuppence and
Please,
twopence
Mr.
and bobs
Scrooge,
make my ears tingle and keep
One
my
piece
heart
of coal,
throb.
Mr.
And
Scrooge.
crowns and coppers,
It's
little eye
cold,
poppers
so
can make my
cold,
pulses
so frightfully
pound.
cold.
Humbug, it's giving to charity. Orphans are pesty and Christmas a parody.
Please,
Ringle,
Mr. Please,
ringle,
Mr.
coins
Please,
when
Mr.
they mingle
Scrooge,
make
it's
such
gold,
a
it's gold,
lovely
it's
sound.
Oh, Lord help us. The whole population is mad. Will you stop? I'm quite capable.